Fox News recently had this headline: Therapists are destroying families. Another headline that I read asks, are therapists responsible for the rise in adults cutting off their parents? Meanwhile, Rodgers appears to have reconciled with members of his family after years of estrangement. And honestly, I love hearing stories like that. I really do. Because despite what some people think, I don't celebrate estrangement. I celebrate reconciliation. And here's what's really interesting. Everyone seems obsessed with asking who caused the estrangement. And yet, very few people stop and ask, why would someone choose it in the first place? And I think that's the better question. I do a series called Cleave Answers where we bring clarity to the conversations that are tearing families apart. Hi everyone, I'm John, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel exists for one reason: families. Because families can be absolutely beautiful. And sometimes families can become incredibly complicated. Every week on Cleave Answers, we're going to tackle the biggest conversations surrounding boundaries and faith and forgiveness and reconciliation, estrangement, emotional abuse, and how we actually build healthier relationships. So if that's your thing, I'd love to invite you to subscribe. Not because I need another subscriber, but because I genuinely believe healthier families start with healthier conversations. And I hope that's what this channel becomes. Now, before somebody writes a comment based solely on the title, can I tell you exactly where I stand? I am not anti-family. Quite the opposite. I love families. I think healthy families are one of God's greatest gifts. I'm also not anti-reconciliation. I pray for reconciliation. I hope for reconciliation. In fact, when I hear stories like Rodgers apparently reconnecting with his family, my first reaction isn't skepticism, it's hope. I love that. But I also don't believe reconciliation can happen by pretending that nothing happened. Healthy reconciliation requires truth, ownership, humility, and repair. That's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start with the question that everyone seems to be asking. Are therapists causing family estrangement? Can I answer that with another question? Why would somebody willingly lose everyone that they love? Seriously, think about it. Who wakes up one morning and looks around and says, gosh, you know what sounds like a really great idea? I think today I'm going to lose my parents, my siblings, my nieces, my nephews, my grandparents, my family traditions, Christmas, my childhood, my sense of belonging. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Estrangement is one of the most painful things that a human being can experience. People don't just lose relationships, they lose history, identity, community, sometimes faith, sometimes an entire support system. Which is why I don't think the most interesting question is who convinced them. I think the more interesting question is what happened that made that level of loss feel worth it. Because those are two completely different conversations. Now, can I make this personal for just a minute? Because I've lived this. Not exactly like you, and not exactly like your family, because every family story is different, but I know what it's like to lose relationships you never wanted to lose. I know what it feels like when holidays become complicated, when your kids lose relationships they never asked to lose, when people you've loved for years suddenly become strangers. I know what it's like to lie awake at night asking yourself, could I have done something differently? And if I'm honest, there's one thing I want people to understand. I didn't want estrangement. I wanted repair. I wanted difficult conversations. I wanted accountability. I wanted someone to simply say, I understand why that hurt. That's what I wanted. Because I think one of the biggest myths around estrangement is that people are looking for reasons to leave. Now, most people that I've talked to, and I've talked to thousands, weren't looking for reasons to leave. They were desperately looking for reasons to stay. That was certainly true for me. I wanted to stay, and I think that most people do. That's why when I hear someone say therapists are convincing people to abandon their families, I honestly don't recognize that story. Not because bad therapists don't exist, we'll talk about that, but because it doesn't match what I've heard over and over and over again. Because in just a minute, I'm going to tell you the sentence I hear more than any other from people navigating family estrangement. And I think it completely changes this conversation.